Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, has been provided by a notice published in the Home News Tribune on December 28th, 2019, and posted in the main lobby of the municipal complex on January 5th, 2020. At this point, I would ask that we do our pledge of allegiance. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
All right.
And you know what? Now Lillian's not here to do the roll call. Let's see the things I can get rid of. Acceptance of minutes, there are none. Technology when it works. Oh, John's going to do the roll call.
Here.
We're going to try this, okay? Chairwoman,
Present.
Mr. Pippola.
Yeah, I don't think he can hear. I don't think Dennis.
He's muted. I see him present in his picture. Mr. Correct?
Here.
Dennis can't unmute it.
Councilmember Coyle? I don't hear an answer from him. Not here. Mr. Soltez here. Mr. Peasy?
Here.
Mr. Singh? Not present. Mr. Danielle?
Here.
Good. Mr. Reader, are you here?
Yes, here.
All right.
Hey.
Attorney Rubin?
Here.
Mr. Bignell?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
All right, we're good.
Here's gang here.
Oh, you don't want to do the resolution? Okay. So you want me to skip on the agenda to Markham Developers? Okay. Under old business, there's none. Under new business, we're going to skip to number 2 on the list. P521, Markham Developers, 807-815 Wood Avenue, Block 500, lots 9.A, 9.B, and 10. Will the applicant please come forward?
Good evening. I'll come forward to the extent that I can come forward.
Yes, exactly.
Don't come too close.
Yeah, exactly. Stay 6 feet.
Not too close.
Good evening, Stephen Tripp from the firm of Lawrence Goldman and Spitzer on behalf of the applicant. It's interesting times. Hope to be back in council chambers at some point soon.
And thank you for your patience, everyone.
Not a problem. This is not my first, not my second, not even my third of these hearings, and they're all interesting. This evening, we're here. It's a property. It's located on Wood Avenue, 807 to 815 Wood. It's block 500, lots 9A, 9B, and 10. And it's a conglomeration of a couple of lots, about 1.94 acres total in the RBB zone. 10,000 square foot minimum lots are required. We're proposing 6 single-family lots on a new cul-de-sac. It's totally conforming. We have no variances are requested. For those who were at the last meeting, there was an objector, a neighboring property owner, block 500, lot 58 on 6 Royal Drive. That property owner had hired an attorney and a planner. They interposed an objection. In between that meeting and this meeting, the applicant has met with them, has agreed.
Madam Chair, Councilman Coyle present.
Very good.
Oh, hey, Joe, how you doing?
Agreed to revise the
All
plan.
right.
We've entered into a written agreement, and I represented that I would put this on the record to start. The agreement has attached to it a revised landscaping plan with additional trees and The exhibit tonight you're going to see shows those additional trees. Those were added to the plans that are before you, but we have committed to add those trees and to attempt to save trees in the rear of this property and the property line abutting the neighbor. And as a result of that, the neighbor has withdrawn the objection, withdrawn the letter from his planner, and there's no issues as to any whether any variances are required. To the extent that there was an issue raised, I had addressed it in correspondence, but at this point it's moot. So what I'd like to do, just to indicate on the record that we reviewed the agreement, I've reviewed the letter from the objector's attorney that was sent to the board today. We're in complete agreement. So with that, I'd like to have Frank Baer, the engineer, sworn in.
Can you see me?
Yeah. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please state your name.
Name
All
is
right,
Frank.
spell it for the record, please.
B-A-E-R, with WSV Engineering Group.
Mr. Baer, can you briefly advise the board of your background and your professional qualifications?
Very briefly, I'm a licensed professional engineer and professional planner in the state of New Jersey since 1984. I do have a degree in civil engineering, and I provided testimony before this board, Board of Adjustment, and numerous boards throughout Ocean, Monmouth, and Middlesex County past years.
We'll accept you as an expert in your field.
Thank you.
And the subdivision plan was prepared under your direction, is that correct?
Yes, it was.
And just very briefly, can you describe the existing site conditions? And I would reference the exhibit, the aerial exhibit, which is exhibit 8-3.
Well, can I just intercede for a second? I think the agreement is marked A1. The letter is A, the agreement's A1, I believe. The letter from counsel for the neighbor is A2, and this will be marked A3, correct?
All right, we're gonna have to renumber as we go then. But
I'm just going in the order that you've introduced them.
okay. All right, we'll do that as A3. So A3 is the aerial. Some of the markings may be different than what we're doing now because of these additional exhibits we added, but we'll clarify that for the record and I'll keep a list. Mr. Baer, just with reference to the video, could you describe the existing site conditions?
Yeah, the existing site conditions consist of a single-family residential dwelling situated on lots 9A and 9B. That's towards the lower portion of the site that's outlined in red on the exhibit. Lot 10 is vacant, and there's a substantial amount of wooded vegetation in the southwestern corner of the property. Property is basically approximately 323 feet in depth, and it is a total of about 260 foot in width. And it is surrounded on all sides by residential dwellings. To the east, immediate east, is Wood Avenue. Wood Avenue happens to be the municipal boundary between Edison Township and Woodbridge Township. However, it's still residential all the way around.
And we're within the RBB zone, correct?
That is correct.
Now, in terms of what the applicant is proposing,
The applicant is proposing to construct a
we'd like,
single,
why don't we,
One speaker, please.
yes. Why don't we show exhibit A1, which is just the rendering of the proposed subdivision, and then we can move, it's not, now it's going to be A4. So the rendering of the subdivision showing how the cul-de-sac will look And why don't you describe what we're proposing, and then we'll move on to Exhibit A5, which is the colored rendering.
Okay, as you can see on the bottom of the rendering here is Wood Avenue. There's a proposed extension terminating in a cul-de-sac. It's approximately 200 foot in length. And it serves for frontage on 6 single-family residential dwellings, all dwellings meeting the minimum lot area criteria. As a matter of fact, many of them are in excess of that area. They tend to range in size from approximately 10,400 square foot to a little over 13,000 square feet. And as such, no variances are required based upon the layout of the site.
So now I'd like to go to what's going to be Exhibit A5, which is the colored rendering of the landscape plan.
That is correct.
With reference to that, Mr. Baer, can you just briefly take us through the subdivision very briefly in terms of what's being proposed?
As I indicated previously, we're proposing 6 single-family residential dwellings on fee simple lots. Each dwelling will be 4 to 5 bedrooms in size. Each lot fronts on the proposed cul-de-sac road, which in this case we've called Brandon Court. As you can see from the rendering, all driveways access from the internal cul-de-sac with no direct access except for the proposed roadway on Wood Avenue. And what you can see is there's a series of street trees lining a curb. Curbing is provided internally on the sidewalk and along Wood Avenue, and sidewalk is also being proposed completely around the site and along Wood Avenue.
And the parking for each lot complies with RSIS? We've got a two-car
Yes,
garage.
every house is provided with a 2-car garage, and there's 2 vehicles that can park in the driveway for a total of 4 spaces per dwelling unit. And for a 4-bedroom house, you only need 2.5 spaces. 5-bedroom, you would need 3 spaces. So we're fully compliant with RSIS.
So we're in excess of RSIS.
Yes.
In terms of utilities, water, sanitary, sewer.
Okay. Very quickly, in the lower right-hand corner is proposed lot 72. That dwelling replaces the existing dwelling that sits on lots 9A and 9B, and will utilize the existing sewer and water connections that service the property from Wood Avenue. Directly across Brandon Court on proposed lot 77, a new sewer lateral and new water service will be installed from, again, the utilities or the systems that exist within Wood Avenue. The other 4 units will be serviced by an extension of the sanitary sewer running up the middle of the cul-de-sac, and also a water main that will terminate in a hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac. And all the services for those 4 units will occur interior to the property.
And Frank, the street lighting is going to be decorative PSE and G lighting, is that correct?
Yes, it is. The lighting, as you can see on the plan, the Isolux diagrams have been provided, and the locations and the detail of the light is provided on the detail sheet.
And in terms of landscaping and woodlands management, we have complied. We're providing a total of 200 trees. Is that correct?
That is correct. 184 replacement trees based upon the ordinance criteria, plus another 16 street trees. And that includes the additional buffering that is proposed at the in the lower left-hand corner for proposed lot 74 and the adjacent lot 58 behind us on the adjacent subdivision.
Yes, if you can see where the cursor is, that's where we've added the trees that I spoke about earlier.
That is correct. Essentially, there's about 4 existing trees that appear to be able to be preserved, which the applicant has indicated he will do. However, the vegetation we propose provide a screening effect between the 2 properties.
And very briefly on stormwater management, can you just explain?
Okay,
Generally,
if you take a look,
You're cutting him off. Can you please explain? Go ahead.
okay, I'll talk about the stormwater management. That's what the Mr. Tripp was asking me to do. The exhibit may be a little hard to see, but around the outer perimeter of the site are a series of 36-inch pipes, which is a underground or subsurface detention system. Stormwater is collected from the cul-de-sac and the roofs of the dwelling. Plus, there's also yard inlets along those pipes to collect any runoff from the grassed areas. And it is stored in those pipes as an underground detention basin. There is an outlet structure that also an outlet structure with weirs that will throttle the flow for the 2, 10, and 100-year storm. And it'll meet all the criteria except for the 2-year storm. It'll meet all the reductions prescribed in the state regulations. However, for the 2-year storm, because a 3-inch orifice for dewatering is required, we'd be requesting a waiver on that as the discharge is slightly elevated from the required reduction. However, it is still reduced from pre-developed conditions. After the outflow structure, it goes into a filtration system. It's basically a concrete vault with filter system located within it. The manufacturer has received DEP certification for total solids removal. And from there, the system discharges into the stormwater system on Wood Avenue.
Mr. Tripp, I have a question, Sherry. Mr. Tripp, it's Mark Danielle, and how are you? What are you asking a waiver of for the 2-year storm? Because there's some water issues in this part of the town from prior developments.
The 2-year storm is what's basically known as the water quality storm, and the state provides that you have to have a specific reduction. However, they also require, when you have a subsurface detention system, that you have to be able to dewater it, and the minimum size orifice that you can use is 3 inches. When we route the 2-year storm through the system, we can't achieve the full reduction in runoff, although there is a reduction in runoff for that storm, because the 3-inch orifice passes more water than would be required to be detained for that storm. As water builds up in the pipes for the subsequent storms, you have a different orifice that allows a certain amount of runoff to pass through, and ultimately you have a weir that, again, it holds back the 100-year storm and allows it to discharge at a prescribed rate, meeting all the required reductions.
So at every storm, we are reducing the rate of runoff, correct?
Yes, we are.
Less than there is now.
Yes, we are.
Now, so are you saying because you reduce it better than it is now, that's why you don't have to do this 2-year storm?
He's not saying he doesn't have to do it.
No.
He's saying that
We are still doing the 2-year storm. However,
Yes.
because the state regs restrict us to using a 3-inch diameter orifice, which is prescribed for allowing certain solids to pass through without clogging the system, it slightly exceeds the total reduction that would be required for the 2-year storm.
In other words, there's no way you can meet it based on the state's requirements with the orifice size, correct?
That is correct. Based upon the state regs, we are required to reduce the runoff to 0.7 CFS. Because of the 3-inch orifice, we can make 0.78 CFS. It is a minimal increase.
But it's not an increase in the runoff. It's a decrease that's slightly less of a decrease than the state requires, correct?
That is correct. You're still reducing.
Frank, let me finish. You're doing that to meet other state requirements. And in terms of every other storm, you're meeting or exceeding the required runoff reduction, correct?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Thank you.
And in a couple
Okay.
cases, we're actually exceeding the reduction.
Mhm.
Right.
Mr. Carly,
And
did
so
you
who
have
had,
something?
Yeah, through the chair, to Mr. Bear. Are you meeting the 80% TSS reduction requirement?
Yes, we are, because it still
Okay.
goes through the same filtration unit.
Okay. So basically, your relief is on the order of a tenth of a cubic foot per second during the 2-year storm in terms of
Actually, slightly
attenuation.
less, but
Excuse me, Mr. Bear, please let him finish. Go
one
ahead.
at a, one at a time, please, I can't hear. Okay.
Thank you. So there's 3 aspects for the board's knowledge to the state regulation. Peak flow attenuation, which is expressed in cubic feet per second. Water quality, which is expressed in total suspended solids, and taking total suspended solids out of the stormwater system. And then groundwater recharge. Relative to groundwater recharge, most every square inch of Edison is in planning area number 1, metropolitan planning area, and so is exempt. Relative to total suspended solids, water quality, Mr. Bear's testimony is that the project meets that requirement. And it's my understanding that Mr. Bear's testimony relates at the 3rd leg of that stool in terms of peak flow. Just for the 2-year storm, they're obligated to attenuate peak flows, reduce peak flows by some percentage, and they fall just a whisker off. Is that about right, Mr. Bear?
that is correct.
Thank you.
And Mr. Carly, you're okay with this whisker then, right? It's that small?
Yeah, I mean, they're attenuating flows, but not to the extent prescribed by, and Mr. Bear will correct me, in New Jersey Administrative Code 7:8, the stormwater management regulations. So they are reducing peak flows in the 2, 10, and 100-year storms, but not to the extent in the 2-year storm, which is the water quality storm. That's a storm you can expect to see every 2 years. It's not, a Hurricane Charlie, I'll say. It's a pretty typical storm. And so they're attenuating it. They're reducing the peak flow off of the property, but they just fall a little bit short. So
You're okay with
with
it?
whatchamacallit, and one of the things that's in my June 9th, 2020 report has to do with Mr. Bear certifying that the downstream system on Wood Avenue has sufficient capacity to handle the flows from all of the storms. And I suspect that he can. It's a pretty robust system out there.
And then continuing the fact that we're actually reducing the runoffs from the site.
Yes. Yeah.
It's handling it now, it's going to handle it in the future.
And at the end of the day, there's going to be less of a flow of stormwater from every single storm, correct?
Yeah. If we were
That's-
sitting here
All
10
right.
years ago, it would just be a direct comparison between pre-development and post-development. But now the state regulation, which has been adopted by Edison, and there's some wisdom to it, says that if in the pre-development circumstance you were generating 2 cubic feet per second, in the post-development circumstance you can only generate 1 cubic foot per second. In this case, they're reducing the flow from 2 cubic feet per second to 1.1 cubic feet per second. So they don't meet the exact standard, but they still are reducing flows. Is that about right, Mr. Bear?
Okay.
That would be correct. And it's safe to mention that the reason we position the filtration unit below the outlet structure is so that any and all storm water that is discharged is filtered and it meets all the water quality standards.
Okay, so I have a second question. Who maintains this under the ground system?
There will be a homeowners association specifically for the maintenance of that system.
So, Mr. Rubin, you'll be writing some kind of an agreement like we've done in the past? Or reviewing it?
I'll write a resolution that requires a homeowners association agreement, but the planning board doesn't write that agreement.
No.
No, I'm sorry, I used the wrong, but who's gonna, how do we make sure this doesn't become a town obligation?
Well, the applicant drafts a homeowners association document that's reviewed by Mr. Rubin.
And
Right,
it's
okay.
recorded, and it's recorded.
It's
In the county.
recorded and it's enforceable.
Okay. All right,
No different than the other homeowners associations that we have.
right, okay.
Yes, Mr. Peasy.
Frank, you addressed the water that's coming off the building as it goes through the underground. What about the water that accumulates on the road itself? How are you addressing?
Couldn't quite hear the last part.
Frank, he asked about the water that accumulates on the road, runoff from the cul-de-sac.
There is 2 catch basins located at the midpoint of the leg of the cul-de-sac that will pick up the runoff and carry that back into the detention system. So essentially, any water that hits the ground within the bounds of the property is routed into the detention system and handled through that subsurface system.
Thank you, Frank. I just saw it on the plan.
Okay.
I don't have any other questions on the plans. I have a question for Mr. Baer. You've reviewed the Carley report and the Bignell report, and we can fully comply with any remaining outstanding items. Is that correct?
Yes, we can. As a matter of fact, Mr. Bignell's report was extremely favorable, and I don't think there's really anything necessary to do to wrap up his report. Items in Mr. Carley's report are minimal, considering we've addressed the majority of the issues, and we can comply with that.
And in terms of outside agency approvals, we have conditional from Middlesex County Planning Board. We have to submit final plans. We've got freehold
That's
soil.
been submitted as of earlier today.
Excuse me?
That has been submitted earlier today.
Okay, and we have freehold soil,
Yes, we do.
and the treatment works approval permit is pending, correct?
That's correct. It's been submitted, it's been accepted, it's been deemed complete, it's in the review process. Normally, this project would have obtained an expedited review from the state of New Jersey, but because of the COVID-19, DEP has halted that program temporarily, so it's going through the normal channels. And it usually takes about 80 to 90 days total.
Okay. I don't have any further questions of Mr. Baer at this time. Any board members?
Sure, Steve, it's Mark Danielle. You know my concern about the shrubs and the trees. Can we get a condition we're not going to have those white pines that you no longer let your clients put in?
Frank?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah, John Soltis saying arborvitae's. No arborvitae's because of the deer. Yeah, the deer.
Yeah. So since Mr. Rosinski, the leather projects I saw were beautiful. This looks like a great design. So yeah, the arborvitae's in Edison are being eaten like candy. So I would like to, and I'm not trying to give you guys a hard time, really. It looks like can we just spend a couple extra bucks on some non-white pines, because in 5 years, the bottoms are all dead. And the arborvitae's they're all gone. Just drive around here, because the deer, we have so many deer, we can't get rid of them. So can we get some kind of replacement tree other than that, for those two?
I think we could probably work with Mr. Bignell and come up with a couple alternates for those trees.
Thank you. So, Mr. Tripp, I'll actually make as a condition, no white pines and no arborvitae's. And then so Frank and our planner can come up with better trees. So they look, good in 5 years.
I don't see any reason why Mr. Bear and Mr. Bignell can't work that out and come up with something.
Okay,
It's not a problem.
thank you,
Well,
Mark.
do you have any comments?
Right.
Well, I don't think you can. Mr.
Madam
Bignell?
Chair,
I'm good. I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm good.
okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Coyle? Oh, Councilman Coyle.
to Mr. Bear, what else is included in the homeowners association? Is the streetlights included?
No.
No, they're not. Specifically, the homeowners association, as we've done in the past, has been solely for the stormwater management system. An O&M manual has been prepared, which according to state regulations will be recorded and will also be part of any master deed that is required for the association.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board? Question?
Let's go to the public.
We have our technicians. Okay, no one's raising their hand, so we have no one from the computer public. We do have 2 people in our audience here.
No, that's,
Oh, a different application. Okay. Okay.
Seeing that no hands come up, I think there's a written.
Someone does have a hand up.
Unmuted that person.
well, they have to unmute.
They have to unmute themselves.
We asked them to.
Hello?
You're unmuted.
I heard her.
Are you taking the part for the public speaking at this time?
We are. Yes.
Okay, I would just like to introduce myself. I'm Christy Alexander. I live next to 815 Wood Avenue. And I'd like to begin saying that I am in
I need
favor
to swear
for,
you in, ma'am. Ma'am, I need to
Sure.
swear you in first.
sure,
You solemnly swear affirm the testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
yes.
All right, thank you. And you need to give us your address again?
831 Wood Avenue.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for the time to take a moment for this. I want to begin by saying that I am in favor of making improvements to our neighborhood, but I have to say I'm not to the extent that's being proposed. For years, I've lived next to the untamed, overgrown vacant lot, and every time it's purchased, I had hoped somebody would put up a beautiful home next door, but 6 is too many. I think the neighborhood should replace old broken homes with new ones. However, the addition of 6 new homes across 807 and 815 will add to the destruction of the traditional neighborhood, as well as the unresolved, highly populated classroom situation. Edison is extremely overpopulated and cannot handle a pop-up development in the middle of our block. When you drive down the street, you see a tree-lined street, house after house, and that's the way it's supposed to be. If someone wants to move into this development, it's my opinion that they need to wait for a house to be available. When my parents built our home 30 years ago, we purposely picked a wooded lot so that we can create a very private, tranquil, park-like setting to grow the family. The proposed development of Brandon Estates will drastically change the way my family will utilize our yard. There'll be months of construction noise, unnecessary influx of homes peering into my yard, which will rob me of the privacy I'm accustomed to, as well as create excess traffic on the street, despite what the Edison police have noted in their approval letter. This development looks to add an additional 30 people to an already heavily traveled road. Normally, outside this pandemic, Wood Avenue is a highway. The amount of speeding is outrageous. And after the pandemic started, it's turned into a drag strip where there's nightly racing. If the proposal for Brandon Estates is approved, I will say it would be both disheartening as well as show how this town does not care for its people. We don't need the extra influx. And if you look through social media, there are several sites that are filled with the opinions and the opposition of the overcrowding that this will add to our neighborhood. Dillon Estates was not welcomed in that area. I have a number of friends back there between Denver and Revere who are very angry at the way those homes fully occupied have changed the way they utilize their neighborhood. I don't want to see that next to mine. It's going to cause me to leave, and I don't want to leave my home. It's beautiful, and I've enjoyed living in Edison.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak? No?
Having seen no hands come up, I like a motion to close public portion.
Do I have a second?
Second, that's Don.
And who was the person who made the motion?
Now, please.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chip, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, the only comment I wanted to make is I understand when there's change and people are concerned about change, but I think what everybody has to bear in mind here is the applicant assembled a property and directed his professionals to come up with a plan that conformed 100% to your zoning. So we're not seeking any relief. We're not seeking a single variance. We've worked with your professionals in terms of landscaping. We had specific objections from a neighbor, and we were able to work it out in good faith to address the immediate neighbor's concern. We've done everything we can to come up with a subdivision that fully meets exactly what the zoning ordinance and the master plan intend for this property. In terms of townwide problems and issues, that's something really that's beyond our ability and the board's ability to address. What we need to do is look at whether this project conforms, and it conforms 100%. So I would ask that the board grant approval.
So we would need a motion now. It looks like Dennis.
Madam,
Mr. Peasy?
I'd like to grant approval for this application.
I cannot hear you, Mr. Peasy.
I'd like to grant approval for this application. And along with that, the applicant must conform to the planning board and the planning and the engineering reports. I also like to grant a waiver for the 2-year storm orifice size. And this application has no variances, I want to go forward with approval.
I'll second the
I'd
motion.
like to add to some of the conditions, though, to Mr. Peasy put. I want a specific reference in the resolution that there will be no arborvitaes and no white pines. The landscaping plan will be subject to discussion between Mr. Baird and our planner.
I'll speak. Okay, I see.
Also, Mr. Tripp, I don't know whether that's in I'm sorry, Mr. Peasy, you failed to say that this would be subject to all of the comments of our two professionals, and that if there is any change pursuant to the protocol that we've adopted over a year and a half ago, that any change at all in the plans would require the applicant to come back, seek any additional approval. And Mr. Tripp, you've heard that standard line from Mr. Pippola. He's stuck on the phone, I think. So
Yes.
I just want to modify that.
Yep, we understand that.
Thank you, Mark.
And also, the resolution, Mr. Rubin will make reference to the homeowners association or regarding the wastewater, and it's only limited to that pursuant to Mr. Coyle's question about anything else. So, Mr. Rubin, you'll reference the same type of language when we have these water basins and storm sewer basins in your resolution.
Okay, I think then at this point, we're ready for a vote.
Madam Chair,
Oh, Mr.
We don't have
Coyle.
a second.
Madam Chair, if I
second.
can add that the applicant have some type of preventive maintenance or powder coating on the lights, at least 18 inches from the base of the lamp, something that's salt resistant. I don't expect it to be salt proof, but if it's not stainless steel and it's paint, that some additional preventive maintenance of powder coating could be added to the lamps. Thank you, Madam Chair.
What?
Mr. Tripp, did you hear that request?
Mr. Roshansky is,
The lights are provided through PSC&G. We will see what type of enamel coating is on their lighting to see if.
Wait a second. You have not been sworn in
Yeah.
or identified or anything, so let's take care of one thing at a time, okay?
sure.
All right,
Yep.
first of all, let me swear you in, Mr.
I
Roshansky.
was
You
about to
solemnly
say-
swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, please state your name and spell it for the record.
Mark Roshansky, Roshansky, with Markham Developers.
All right, first things first, we need a motion to reopen the hearing. We closed the hearing.
Yeah, hold on. Mr. Can I just interrupt? Mr. Coyle, Councilman Coyle, what are you suggesting? We already went through this. And
I
now you're
just
bringing
added-
this up.
The same
No,
thing
you
you
didn't.
just
You didn't add
said.
anything.
You added, Mr. Danielle, you added, I was just adding to it, that's all.
No, but hold on. I added it because I asked Mr. Bear and Mr. Tripp if they had any issue with the eliminating the use of arborvitaes and white pines because of white pines look pretty lousy around this town after 3 or 4 years, and with the influx of deer, our chairperson brought up arborvitaes, and Mr. Bear agreed, and Mr. Tripp agreed through the applicant, and therefore. Again, I'm willing to listen to it, but this should have been brought up to Mr. Bear and Mr. Tripp 25 minutes ago when he says any other questions. So could you explain for fellow board members what you're worried about? Because we don't live like in Michigan where there's a lot of salt. I'm just trying to figure out what is the issue so I can better understand it. I don't disagree with you if I understood it better. What is the issue?
Mr. Danielle, my experience on Amboy Ave, the street lamps are painted and the salt causes a chip issue later during maintenance. Roshansky addressed that they're being purchased through PSC&G. So that answers my question. If it can't be added, it can't be added. But I'm just
But he hasn't
reviewing the
addressed-
history.
Councilman Coyle, he hasn't addressed anything because he hasn't testified formally yet.
Yeah.
So we need to, if first we have to decide whether we want to reopen the record for additional testimony. And then if we do, Mr. Roshansky can give formal testimony in response to your inquiry. But we don't have that yet.
Mr. Rubin, I'm okay with opening to address the question. I just want to understand what Mr. Coyle, and he has experience on it. So if we can I make a motion to open up the hearing and to address this issue so Mr. Rosansky can then give testimony of what kind of lamps he's going to purchase from PSC&G, and hopefully they satisfy Mr. Coyle's concerns based on his experience on Amboy Avenue. So I make a motion to open up the hearing.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Al Peasy.
It was Mr. Peasy again?
Okay, we can't hear him, okay.
I'll remove my mask.
No, please don't.
Okay.
All right, let's stay focused.
All right,
Let's stay
Mr.
focused.
Roshansky, you're now sworn in, okay?
And we've reopened solely for the purpose of answering the question raised by Mr. Coyle regarding the streetlights.
In
That's
regard, In regards to the two proposed streetlights, they are a fiberglass composite. They are provided by PSC&G. They do not corrode, and they're specifically designed to withstand all elements of the weather as well as salt. The detail is
Mr. Rosinski,
10 of 13.
Mr.
Mr.
Rosinski,
Rosinski,
could you
have
just
you-
tell us who you are and what your relationship is to this application?
I'm the managing member of Markham Developers.
Thank you.
I have a question now for Mr. Rosinski. Have you had experience with the issue that Mr. Coyle has, because you build around town, have you seen, are these lamps better now in the last couple of years, the ones that you're purchasing?
For the last 7 to 10 years, the lights have been from a fiberglass composite. The lights that Mr. Coyle's referring to on Amboy Avenue are a steel composite, and they need to be painted. So we have not experienced any of these issues on any of our new subdivisions.
So, Mr. Coyle, does that answer your question?
Madam Chair, I'm satisfied with the fiberglass. I wasn't aware of fiberglass versus the steel. The steel was my concern. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think we also have to open to the public now on this single issue. Mr. Rubin?
No, I have nothing further.
No, but do we need to open to the public on this single issue? Do I see it?
Yeah, we probably should.
Yes, following along here. For anyone else that would speak, you're limited just to this issue with the lighting. Is there anything somewhere?
Make a motion to close the public portion if there's no comments?
Person that wants to speak.
Okay.
Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak from? Seeing none,
Make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
all in favor? Mr. Rubin, are we ready then to do our vote?
Yes.
Lillian?
Mr. Jerry,
Yes to approve?
Mr. Pittsburgh,
Yes.
oh, the thumbs up. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Correct,
Yes, to approve.
Councilmember Coyle,
Yes.
Mr. Soltes,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Peasy,
Yes.
Mr. Sandelsky, is he out there anywhere?
I recall.
No. JP Singh,
Mr. Readerson?
Mr. Singh,
There you go.
Mr. Danielle,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Reader,
Yes.
Lenny votes yes.
okay. This application is approved.
I think Mr. Sandelsky voted yes.
Yes, he
I
did.
did.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And maybe I'll see you in council chambers next month.
We hope, we are.
Good Lord willing.
You can hear or be square.
Okay, Steve.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Hey,
Terry?
Thank you very much.
Christina Daniels is here. This is this first one. So you guys want to come up here by the dais?
So I'm just going to call the next application. This is on our agenda, P5218. Christina Daniels, Lafayette Avenue, block 693.B, lots 20 and 21.
Okay, this is the applicant. You want to read what they're doing?
Okay. This is a proposal for a two-family home.
No. Subdivide existing, that's it,
Yes,
up here.
yeah, that's what I just started.
Proposal.
Oh, two single-family homes with a lot line adjustment. No construction
No variance.
and no variances. And we do have the applicant present here.
Right. The homeowner. So, you agree with, you had your report from Hank Bignell and Charlie Farley. You had gotten them. and they agree with everything. Hank, do you have anything to say about this?
No, we're good.
Can
I'm
I
good.
just ask, that that we swear in the witnesses and they just identify themselves and I'd say, this is what we want to just do this lot line adjustment. Can we just do that?
And then I'm going to move that.
And the second question I have is, who are the other property owners? They're not listed on anything that I have. Who owns 23?
Okay, she'll explain to you who it is.
Okay, great. Now, can I swear you in first?
Okay, sure.
And then you need to identify yourself, okay? Okay, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, could you please state and spell your name for the record?
Christina Daniels, CHRISTINA
And you're the owner of 21 Lafayette?
That is correct.
Okay. Who owns 23?
The estate of Clifford Bosworth.
Could you spell that, please?
CLIFFORD, capital B as in boy, O S as in Sam, WORTH.
And did Mr. Bosworth sign the application
Well,
consenting to this?
His daughter did. His daughter was the power of attorney, and she signed an affidavit, I guess it's an affidavit, to give me the ability to come and make this presentation so she didn't have to go through it. I'm the one doing the thing. They're the one who want to give me this little piece of property that her father moved the fence 22 years ago. We've been taking care of it and using it for 22 years. We just want to make it legal.
So what this is essentially a semi-triangular piece of property that cuts behind your land, and you're just going to attach it to your land and cut it off from their land, correct? Is that yes?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I have nothing else. I leave it to everyone else.
Anyone from the board? Mr. Danielle?
I'm okay.
Mr. Corley?
Hi, Madam Chair. Yeah, we issued a report, a rather short report, which reflects the complexity of the application on February 3rd. It's really just a lot line adjustment, no improvements. Is really, I'd like to report that I did an awful lot on this, but there's nothing much to do. And so that, as they say, is that.
Let's go to the public.
Okay, so at this point, I would open to the public. If anyone would like to speak as to this application, I guess it's you raise your hand. I don't see any activity.
Having seen no activity, I'd like to make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Peasy.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this outline adjustment.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Lily?
Ms. Ruggieri,
Yes to approve?
Mr. Pimpola,
Yes, a thumbs up?
Mr. Correct,
Yes to approve.
Councilmember Coyle. No, Councilman Coyle,
I don't see him.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Soltes,
Yes.
Mr. Peasy,
Yes.
Mr. Sandelsky,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Singh,
Yes.
Mr. Danielle,
Yes.
Mr. Luca. This application is approved.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I didn't hear. Mr. Reader, did you say yes? I didn't hear.
Yes to.
It was in between the chairs.
Stay away from the popcorn.
Okay, so finals, there are none. Miscellaneous.
We have resolution.
That's right. We have to go back
Go back to
to
resolution.
the resolution. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the resolution prepared by Mr. Rubin?
Yeah.
And then it goes through and then.
Okay, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Okay, well, Lillian's not,
Lillian,
Yeah.
we're doing resolutions.
Oh,
we're doing the resolution?
well,
There was
no,
a-
I was just-
Okay,
Yeah.
There was a motion to approve. John,
Right, resolution P5223.
yeah.
Do all in favor?
aye.
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 Okay, so our
Everybody's good.
resolution has been approved. Ms. Laney, any comments from the public?
I see none. We'll close the public portion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I hope that our next meeting will be in person. We'll have to stay 6 feet
Yes.
apart, but it's very technology and the limitations that we have. And I appreciate everyone's patience. And be healthy, be safe. Good night.
Good
Nice to
night.
see everybody.
To adjourn?
Night.
Oh, I was
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I can gavel it.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.